no difference. Everybody understood yesterday? Tsar Gidul Bonim, Yaakov Avinu. Okay, so we're on page 90 in the Maimer of B'chukay Sai and L'kut Torah, in the middle of the second chapter, page 90, the first column. Yeah, we did a few lines from the top. Mem Hey, column 3. Mem Hey, column 3. Okay, today's class is dedicated by Michal Lipkin in memory of his dear father, Avraham ben Reb Michal, Tahei Nishmas Eitzrura B'Tzar Chaim, should remain an eternal source of light and inspiration and blessing for you and their whole family and all the Jewish people. La'arichus Yom V'Shalom Tovus, thank you. Thank you very much. It's also dedicated by Chaya Franklin for Shidduchim, in the merit of Shidduchim from Menachem Mendel ben Chaya Tzivya, and for Nechamadina Bas Chaya Tzivya. Amen. You should find easy and great and right and smooth shidduchim b'shat tov u'matzlachas. And thank you very much for your partnership and friendship and atzlacha and everything and for everything. So the last point the Alter Rebbe made in the Maimer. Yesterday we spoke about two main themes, right? One main theme was the idea of tefillah, avos tiknum, that the tefillah was made up from the avos, from the soul, from the energy, from the life forces and inner consciousness of the avos. We spoke about the different psukim in tefillah that capture the theme of love, the psukim, parts of tefillah that capture the theme of awe, respect, reverence, that's Yitzchak, Avram and Yitzchak. And finally, the parts of davening that capture the theme of Yaakov, representing midas harachamim, compassion, empathy. Gedula, Gvura, and Rachamim, as he put it. And that's the meaning of tefillah is avos tiknum. When Avram davened, it was Avram davening. When Yitzchak davened, there was Yitzchak davening. When Yaakov davened, there was Yaakov davening. The chiddush of the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah was Tfilas Avos Tiknum, because each of them is a father and a shepherd. The Gemara says they're one of the 7 shepherds that feed, nurture, and raise, and mold, and craft, and allow the growth and expansion of the tzayin, of the flock, like a shepherd, tzayin kadoshim. So therefore, the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah took the tefillas from all the avos, and they turned it into a tefillah. And the definition of a shepherd is that it allows the sheep to grow. A baby sheep needs to be fed and needs the right environment in order to grow. And this is a mashal for what we spoke about in Bechukaisei Telecho, that the growth of a soul, which the real growth is in a soul more than in an angel, as he explained at length, because the soul is rooted in the place of Oisis HaChakika, right, not Oisis HaKasiva, where the letters are not fixed, the letters are subsumed in infinity and constantly connected. So therefore the soul searches to go to that place. And even in that place, the growth continues even more than anywhere else, because there's an endless source of creativity and newness. So it's the shepherds that give rise and help to these souls to grow. But more than anyone else, it's Yaakov Avinu. As he says, the Gidul Banim, raising of children, which is a metaphor for the Midas, is through Midas HaRachamim, as explained at length yesterday. Dafke Yaakov Avinu Midas HaRachamim. That's what it says about a shepherd, that B'cheiko Yisa, he lifts up the sheep in his bosom. As we say in Tehillim, Eilecha Hashem Nafshi Esa. It's the lifting up, the aligning your life, your midas, your attitudes, your triggers, your instincts, with who you really are. Midas HaRachamim is the most powerful tool for that, so that I don't remain stuck in a distorted representation of myself. And that's how I live, in that bubble. But I lift everything up, Eilecha Hashem Nafshi Esa, which of course includes a person's midas. And he says, and that's the focus of davening, especially this parts of Yaakov, which is Midas HaRachamim. The second point we learned was, he came back to the question of why it says im, and Chazal says lashon tachanunim. Instead of just saying im is if, im b'chukaisei telechu. No, here im is a request. Im, if only b'chukaisei telechu. Why did they feel the need to take this im and explain it differently than most ims in Chumash? As we discussed in the beginning of the Maimer when he discussed the questions. There's a question on im, on b'chukaisei telechu. And on this the answer was, once you understand what the whole nikud of b'chukaisei telechu is, why he uses the word b'chukaisei, why he uses the word telechu, which is again an unusual word. It's all to bring out, obviously this is the taich al pi chassidus. It's the literal taich is you follow my laws. But every word in Torah is precise and has layers of significance. Still, ein mikra yotzei midei pshuta, the Gemara says. Pasuk is also just a literal interpretation, but based on understanding the toichen apnimi, the inner meaning of b'chukaisei telechu, now you understand, of course, there's a lashon tachanunim, there's a request. And what's the request? The request is that in this journey from your finiteness to your infinity, from your structure, from your limitedness, from a place of structure to a place where Oisius is the beginning of all structure, because Oisius is defined, right? Like we explained, the creation in Oisius turned creation into a defined reality. Pre that you also have creation, but it's not called creation. Creation is a matter of perception. Pre that you have what's called Oisius HaChakika, the way the letters are part of Ein Sof. It's part of Ein Sof. In other words, pre-creation, you can also have a tissue box, just not a tissue box. What you see is the Ein Sof. After creation, no, there's Oisius. Well, I don't know, God created exactly a tissue box, but certainly trees, which created wood, etc. I mean, all the sources of it, whatever we have in the world, you have a table, it's made from wood. That definition is Oisius, right? Eitz pri. But H is Bara Lakim, as we discussed in the previous Shurim at length. I'm not going to repeat it because it's a deep Indian. But Oisius HaChakika represents the way the world, the way the sphere is, the way the structures are subsumed. They're not separate from the Ein Sof. If the world would remain in Isis HaChakika, we wouldn't have the world the way we know it, because there would be no perception of anything outside of infinity. The Chiddush of Isis HaKsiva is, no, there's parchment and there's letters, and now we fuse the two. And in Torah itself, you have these two states. The way Torah is in the Luchas, Isis HaChakika, and the way Torah came down into Torah Shebeksav. That's already a different level of Torah. So when a person is rising from the place of Isis HaKsiva to Isis HaChakika, meaning, in simple words, when you're trying to find out who you really are, what is engraved in you, not what was written on you, but what was engraved in you, right? Every experience we have in life makes an imprint on the brain. Especially when you're young, the brain has to form. It takes years for a brain to form. Yeah, it's like till 24, 25, 26, the brain is forming. And then even later, but the earliest years, the brain is forming. And today we know this also in neuroscience, every encounter, every experience, every conversation, and certainly meaningful experiences, dramatic experience, they have an imprint on the brain. And they create neural pathways. Today they call it neural pathways. It's basically the way the brain functions. It's like little tiny highways through which the brain travels, and that defines, how we react, how we think, how we process, all of our attitudes. But that's Isis HaKsiva. That was written onto my brain. That was written onto my brain based on, obviously, nurture, based on the people closest to me, based on my encounters and my experiences. And we're talking, it doesn't start when you're 10 years old, when you're bar mitzvah. It starts in the womb. This starts at the moment of conception. This is the earliest things. What the baby heard, before baby, it's called an embryo, a fetus. The earliest stages, and even before being a fetus, even before being an embryo. The earliest stages, on Tuesday I taught a women's class. So we learned a whole shtickle from Meha Shilayach, from the Ishbitzer. He explains there's 5 levels of Torah. It says in Medrash Rabbi Bereshis, V'eya etzloi amoins. He gives 5 interpretations of what Torah is. And he says it parallels to the 5 stages of human development. Conception. Conception is when the sperm and the egg, when the sperm fertilizes the egg, the male genetic makeup and the female meet and become one. But that nobody knows about. Even the mother doesn't know that it happened, right? Well, the father doesn't know. I mean, the mother can, today with IVF, it's a different process by some people. But generally, the way Hashem created at this stage, nobody knows. And then there's the second stage, when the pregnancy becomes noticeable, at least to the mother, and then ultimately to others. So here it's still covered. You still don't see a child, but it's conspicuous. And then there's birth, but the baby is still completely dependent on mother. And then there is when you grow up and you can become an independent person. And then he says stage 5 is when you get married yourself and you're ready to become not just a receiver, but a giver, to create a new generation. It's 5 stages. It's very interesting. You compares it to the 5 stages in Torah. So many things in life is Isis HaKsiva. It's added to me. Letters that were not they're not engraved, they're added, they're written on me. I don't know maybe that they're written, I think it's me. Isis HaChakika is the search for that which is engraved in you. Engraved in you means it's part and parcel of you, essentially. But it's finding my true core, my true essence. Pre any message that comes from the outside, comes from a part that's alien to me. This search is a very, very profound one. But as always, it can go in many different ways. And that's the imbechu kaisei telechu. This search for the true self, for the authentic, call it the authentic raw self, is a search that takes me out of the regular structures I'm familiar with. And here it's very easy for a person to get lost. As I run away, what am I running to? I could be running to another false distortion of self. Even if it's different than the first, and it sounds very, romantic or dramatic or engaging, but am I engaging my essence? In the Isis of the Maimer, whenever there's telecho, what telecho is talking about, when you're touching that space where the Isis are subsumed in the Ein Sof. Simply, the Ein Sof is not defined by any structure. So you would think that the breakdown of every structure would be fine and any path would work, because which path won't hit infinity? And that's the Im Loshen Tachanunim, that a person in this journey, and that's the real word, the journey here, should be b'chukaisai telecho. The real halicha will only come if you're aligned with b'chukaisai, if you're aligned with true Ein Sof. Right. And for that, you need to be able to find that which is truly ingrained in you, that which is truly engraved in you. Who you really, really are. Not who I'm becoming just as a response to something negative. And that's the Im Loshen Tachanunim, because this is a journey that's fraught with so many different alternatives and so many different invitations that could seem intoxicating, and very, very elevating at times. But really, there's no real unison with who the person is, and that's what he says, that the b'chukaisai, the real telecho, only happens when you remain aligned with the true Ein Sof, with your true source, which is true core, and that's what the Avos give. Be'ever hanar yashva avisechem, and that's the tefillah that Anshe Knesset Hagdolah, they access that state of consciousness, as the Alter Rebbe put it. Halavai, that halichas ha'adam should be through the tefillah, which was given to Anshe Knesset Hagdolah. He doesn't have to look for halichas hacheres. And the last words we learn, because he toiver shebekulon va'halavai sheyuspak lahu. It's the best of all, and halavai, one should really be able to actualize it and maximize it. In other words, halavai, you should take everything that's here, rather than right away go run and look for my next high. In other words, there's a difference between a high and between a real connection with you that is consistent, that is eternal. And to be able to live a life that is accessing my b'chukaisai. And over there's going to be real telecho, there'll be real growth, because when you're touching the Ein Sof in you, it doesn't cease. The well doesn't cease. Other things, after a week I'm bored, after a month I'm bored, after 5 years I'm bored, next. In the first Beis HaMikdash, as I said yesterday, the davening, not only in the Beis HaMikdash, in the whole Jewish world, davening was a personal experience. It was a mitzvah of Shema, to say Shema, that's from the Torah. But the davening that we have comes only much later. It comes from the beginning of the second Beis HaMikdash. No structure, and there was no such a thing as Shachos Mincha Ma'ariv. The Anshe Knesset Hagdolah in the beginning of Bayis Sheni introduced a text for davening and a time for davening. Shachos Mincha Ma'ariv. Before that, there's a mitzvah of tefillah, according to the Rambam and many other shittas. Tefillah is d'oraisa, but what's tefillah? Tefillah is to ask Hashem when you need something. When, how, and when, any way you want, 24/7. There's no Zman Tefillah, there was no text for Tefillah. Yeah, no, here he's not talking about so much that there's the text of davening. Here he's talking about the path of the Avos. The path of the Avos. Yeah. The Anshe Knesset Hagdolah put it into Tefillah, that path. But it's not just talking about the words of davening, he's talking about the whole path connected to Tefillah. So now let's see weiter. Okay, we're holding, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 lines from the top. Aval machmas gashmi saguf loy samad veloy sakom hachakika vahilu chaza. But because of the material side of a person, what he calls your gashmi is haguf, the fact that the person is embodied, in a material world, which is all about structures and definitions, and can constantly pull me away from that flow from infinity. In fact, I want to control. I want to go into a box. I want to go into a mold. That's the natural state of Gashmi Saguf. So he says, therefore, because of that, this engraving of the Isis, which is the ultimate source of Telecha. Remember, this is all the hemshech of the Maimer, the difference of Malachim and Hashamas, Dibur and Machshava. How Machshava is the river that's connected to Eden, the source, and therefore it's never fixed. It's all good, but that's when you can take a journey into that space inside of you. But our bodies demand definitions and structures and safety and comfort. Like, yeah, this is how I think, this is how I work. How can you? So yeah, a person can have moments or can have journeys, and they go into this transcendent space of consciousness, where all the definitions fall apart. But that's what he says. Mitzad Gashmi, you see the words. None of this is going to last. It's not going to stand, and it's not going to it's not going to stand. It's not going to endure. Why? Because which world you're living in, yeah? The Arba Nichnasu Lapardas, the Gemara says in Chagigah, 4 people went into the orchard. Rabbi Akiva came out in peace. Ben Azai passed away. Ben Zayma couldn't come back to his regular mind. Elisha ben Avuya he ran to the other extreme. There was no way of integration. Rabbi Akiva was different, it was unique. It's a whole separate Inyan. I'm just bringing out the Inyan. Once you touch certain places, you want to stay there, but if you want to be here, Bilti shmiras keli. Without the protection of a keli, you need to be able to have containers for infinity. Keli zu tikkun la'ad. This vessel allows it to remain in the person's life, in the person's daily life. So right after there's the next words. And here the word is tishmoiru. Very different than telechu. Telechu is the ultimate movement, and as he explained, it's a movement that never ends, and it's a movement that is forever growing and increasing. And it's a movement that doesn't just mean incremental growth like malachim have, but it's a movement which is truly rooted in Ein Sof, and therefore it's constant. And that's the uniqueness of a neshama, which doesn't come from dibur, it comes from machshava. And he said the time of that growth is mostly by davening. That's the time that was designated for this telechu, of getting in touch with that space within ourselves. Both love, through love, and awe and compassion. Those are the three methods. And as we explained, what all of that means, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, again, this is all one hemshech here, right? The love represents the fact that the person opens themselves up to the miracle of life, to the gift of life, that really it's all a flow of Ein Sof, and we're channels of that. And that's what the love of life, the celebration of life. I'm not addicted to the superficial. I'm not connected only to the outer shell, outer veneer, to the chitzonius, to the external. But a person falls in love with how could you not love when you recognize the infinity in every moment of life in the world. But that doesn't just come with Ava, with Avram. It comes with Yitzchak. Yitzchak there's a reverence and a respect and an awe. It's not something that just spoils me. So now I could just be a couch potato. On the contrary, it demands of me. It lifts me up. Right? Yitzchak was a symbol of Mesiras Nefesh. In other words, I want to be worthy of this relationship. Am I worthy of being a channel for this infinity? That's what the Iyar is. That's the second part of davening. And then there is the experience of Rachamim, experiencing the pain as is without any need to interpret and put into a box. So that's where the Telechu happens. Fine, but you're living in a body. And when you're living in a body, that's a real thing. That's also authentic. It's also authentic. So that's why he says, you need shmirah. You need to protect. You need to preserve. Ves mitzvosei tishmeru. So you can have a beautiful flame. You don't have a wick to contain the flame. The flame dances and sways, and there's no flame anymore. The wick has to contain the flame. So ves mitzvosei tishmeru, after b'chokosei telechu, which he explains primarily as tefillah, becomes now you need the shmirah. What's this shmirah? He says, my mitzvahs. What's the connection? Dehine ha-mitzvahs heiramach mitzvahs aseh. Mitzvahs represents basically 258 mitzvahs aseh, what we do, and shasa, 365 loises, so what we don't do. The list of 613 mitzvahs includes 248 positive and 365 prohibitions which disengage. V'hine, let's understand what this is. Ha-shasa loisesa hein lahafrid asara. The shasa loisesa, even just this line is already a ganze Torah. The shasa loisesa is lahafrid asara. People think, you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do this, leave me alone, a little vacation. No. Shasa loisesa is protecting. Protecting. If a person, is in a doctor goes into an environment that's full of germs and disease, the easiest thing is, it's contagious, the easiest thing is that he becomes part of the problem. He can't be a doctor anymore. He can't be part of the solution. He's part of the problem. He's also sick. The one says, arvich tzarich, your guarantor who's supposed to pay back the loan, he himself needs a guarantor. He himself went bankrupt yesterday. Shasa loisa is a system. It's a system of life that keeps you safe. It protects you from toxicity, from negativity. Because if I'm not a free person, I just become part of a problem. I've now become poison myself. So recognizing who you are always comes with a second part. Recognizing who you're not. There's no yes without a no, right? Tosfos says in Kiddush, Areat Mekudeshes. What does it mean, Areat Mekudeshes? You're holy, you're sanctified. When your wife marries you, she becomes hektish. You make her hektish. Rabbi Radinsky once gave a shiur here about marriage. So he says, Areat Mekudeshes li, you're not allowed to use hektish. It's me'ilah. You're not allowed to use hektish for your own benefit. You have to be careful. What does it mean? So Tosfos says two pshat, and one is Mekudeshes. She's asur la kula alma kehektish. She's asur on the whole world like hektish. Meaning hektish, you have to use it for the Beis HaMikdash. It's holy, it belongs to the Beis HaMikdash. Even a tissue belongs to, I can't just use it because I want to blow my nose. No such a thing. Yeah, if it's bedek habayis or if it's a car, even bedek habayis, it's hektish. The Gemara has a sugya. The Gemara says, l'chayre, when they were building the Beis HaMikdash, so the workers, the construction workers, at some point they may have leaned on the wall, to rest for a few seconds. It's me'ilah. They're using the wall. So he says that they used to build the Beis HaMikdash b'chayil. When they built it, they made sure it was chayil. After they finished building it and they got out of it, then they were makdish it. So asur kula alma kehektish. The woman, she's now exclusively belongs to her husband, nobody else. The second thing is Mekudeshes is miyuchedesli, she's designated to me. So it's two different elements. To be connected to you, I also have to be disconnected from anything that will take away that connection. There's a new insanity that has infiltrated even some place in our community. It's called an open marriage. You know what an open marriage is? It's a mishugas. Even from Parshas psychological, socialist, a couple came to me about this. They grew up in a very, I'm laughing, it was pretty tragic. And he's saying that he's trying to train his wife to be open. Don't be so narrow-minded. Have different experiences. I want different experiences. Just have different experiences. The words, it sounded so sophisticated, like, what are you so close-minded? What would be open? So I told him, even he considers himself an atheist. So I said, even from an atheistic point of view, evolution has created or developed this concept of marriage simply because biologically it's the only sustainable path when you have that connection, that relationship. But the nekuda really is this vart, that shasam mitzvahs loisasa, it's a boundary to be mafred a person min hara. Person says, it's not negaya, I only want to be positive. It's very nice. But the fact is that there's poison, there's toxicity, there's negativity, you have to protect yourself. That's that. Lahafred min hara. Avoramach mitzvah in the malka. In Zohar, the 248 mitzvahs are called the limbs of the king. What does this mean, limbs of the king? Kavayachal Hashem, it's like Hashem is up Adam on Adam, and there's 248 limbs. It says mitzvah seser keneged ramach evarim. That Chazal say, that the Gemara says. But the Zohar says it's evarim the malket, the limbs of the king. What's pshat? God doesn't have a body. Ein loy guf, ein loy dmusa guf. The answer is kamoyla mashal aver hu kliya shabay nimshach chayis b'makar achayis sheshayda b'mayach. What's the uniqueness of an aver? An aver, a limb, is a channel. It's a keli. A keli means a vessel, a channel. What is it a channel for? It accesses the life force of the person that dwells in the brain. We would call it a soul, but here he just calls it the chius, however you want to define it. But there's a vitality that animates us, that vivifies us, right? The engine of life that's in the person, the electrical currents, etc. And the center is the brain, the central nervous system. And from there, it travels. But if you wouldn't have an aver, right, with its unique chemistry, it takes the eye to be able to channel, right, that ability to see. And it's miraculous. And the eye is built in a way. By the way, millions and millions of optic nerves have to meet each other from the brain and the eye and connect in order to be able to create this capability. It's hafla v'afela. So the eye becomes a keli. It's a container, a channel, right, that can channel this life force from the. And every aver is a keli. The ears are there a keli, and the nose is a keli, and the mouth is a keli, and the hands and the fingers, and every nekuda, every aver, every nekuda in the body is a keli, is a channel for a different element of life, of consciousness, of life, of functionality. That's the miracle of biology, how that's built. That's the chiddush, evarim de malka. What does the Zohar mean? Kain ukan, ki a mitzvah kli. The same is true. Kalim are evarim the malka. Every mitzvah is an aver. It's a limb that channels, that contains the king. That's what he says. It's a keli for the light. Which light? The light that comes from stimmen the chol stimmen. Stimmen the chol stimmen is an expression in Zohar. It means that which is concealed from the concealed. Sasum means it's covered, it's concealed. Right? Sasum. Stimmen the chol stimmen means it's a secret from all the secrets. It's concealed from all the concealments. In other words, even the most concealed, deepest spiritual realities can't contain it. So from this stimmen the chol stimmen, la hasagas adam hashafel, to be able to be processed or to be able to be experienced and internalized, hasagas means reached, comprehended by the adam hashafel, by the humble human being who's living here in this world. So just like the Avrim are kalim for the chiyus of the soul, and if chas v'shalom, something is damaged in the aver, often it cannot contain it anymore. It's like you have a bowl. If you have a pitcher for water, you put a hole, it can't contain water anymore. It may be able to contain oranges, but not water. If the hole is big enough, then it may not be able to contain anything. It's time to throw it out in the garbage. Because a keli has to have the ability to be able to contain that which it has to contain. Chas v'shalom, there could be parts of evarim that are damaged in a particular way that they can't do their job anymore. Why not? The brain is functioning. The brain is functioning well, but it doesn't have a keli. It doesn't have a place to express it. It doesn't have a home. That's why you have to protect every aver, because it needs to be a keli. So every mitzvah is an aver de malka. It's like the limbs of the king. It channels, that's what he says. It channels What does it channel? The Iyar. Which Iyar? The light of Hashem, which is Stibba the Chol Stimin, but in a way that the person can hold on to it, just like the Aver. How am I supposed to hold on to the life force? So the limb channels it, the limb carries it. The mitzvah is something that a person can do, that a person can grasp, a person can have, and that's a keli for this type of Iyar. For Iyar Yisbarach HaMalubish Bo, and the Iyar that is manifested in this keli, in this limb, in this mitzvah, hu anikre yein malchus rov ki yad hamelech. In the Megillah, the first chapter, we speak about Achashverosh's feast. It says in Medrash, the Gemara says when it says a melech in Megillah, it's a martial metaphor for Hashem. The Ramah writes in his commentary on Megillah, Mechir Yain Achashverosh is Achar is V'reishis Shaloi. The beginning and the end is his. So you could read the whole Megillah as a spiritual story. And in Kabbalah, Chassidus, and a lot of my Maram of Purim, we've learned, Alter Rebbe sees the whole Megillah as a spiritual story. Not just as the physical story of Achashverosh and Haman and Esther, etc. So that's what he's saying here. The party that the Megillah begins with, he describes that how Achashverosh made, right, the seventh day he made, by Yom HaShvi, how after he made a party 7 days for everybody in Shushan, and he describes everything, the Chur, Karpas, Tchelis, right? Mitazov, etc. V'hashkois b'chleizov, v'chelim mikelim shoynim. He made sure that there's golden vessels, but how many types? Kelim mikelim shoynim. All types of kelim. V'yein malchus rov ki yad hamelech. And the wine of royalty was rov, it was abundant. V'ashsiyah chados ein oinus. Everybody could drink how much they wanted. Ein oinus. So the Rebbe teaches v'yein malchus rov, this Iyar that comes into the kelim is called Yein Malchus Rav Ki Yad Hamelech. What makes it Rav? Ein Soif L'Iyar Yisbarach. The kelim, we're soon going to see what the kelim are. But the Yayin, the Iyar, what is it? It's Malchus, Yein Malchus. Since it's Yein Malchus of Hashem, it's Rav Ki Yad Hamelech, like the hand of the king, which is Ein Soif. So you're talking about Iyar Ein Soif. That's what he says. It's an Iyar. Every mitzvah contains what? It contains something that's stimma the chol stimmin. It's essentially incomprehensible to the human mind or the human experience. Because it's pure divine infinity. It's yein malchus rav ki yad hamelech. V'hu kavanas ha-mitzvah. And this is really what we mean by the kavanah of a mitzvah. What's the kavanah of a mitzvah? There's the mitzvah and there's the consciousness behind the mitzvah. There's the state of mind when I'm doing a mitzvah. Shehu lahamshich eira yizbarach lamata. The kavanah of the mitzvah is to be mamshich. Eire yizbarach l'matai de kli ha-mitzvah v'atayra halazu. The kavanah of the mitzvah is to access his eir down here below. How? Through this vessel. This is a vessel, but there's something inside the vessel. You don't. The limb should never be detached from the life force of the limb. Chas v'shalom, right? A limb that's not connected to the source of life, it's a piece of meat. It's lifeless. It's not, the whole power of the keli is the whole power there. It's a keli. There's fusion. There's oneness. There's integration. So the kavanah of the mitzvah is that this keli is mamshich. It's accessing a light. Through this mitzvah, this Torah, learning Torah, which are all evarim de malka. I'm accessing this light, this presence. Hu loshen safsa, loshen chibur. V'hu loshen safsa, loshen chibur. And that's why it's called a mitzvah. Again, it's a hafla de kavod. How do we teach mitzvah? We teach mitzvah commandment. That's what everyone says, right? 613 commandments. Well, the Rebbe says that the real teach of mitzvah is not commandment. Of course, it also means commandment. In Lashon Kodesh, we have a term called tzafsa. Right? Tzafsa means connection, chibur, connection. It's an expression in Gemara and Brachas, Kol ha'olam lo nivra ela l'tzavos lozeh, to connect. In modern Hebrew, they call it tzevet. You know what a tzevet is? A team that works together. Tzafsa. Not svas with a vase. That's a plier. That's tongues. This is with a vav. Thank you so much. It's with a vav. So he says mitzvah doesn't mean commandment. Mitzvah means commandment. I'm not negating that, but he's saying mitzvah is lashon chibur, it's connection. It's a different height. It's a different depth, not a different. It's a different depth. Not everybody likes being commanded. Most people I know don't like commandments, but everybody wants to be connected. And even if they say they don't want to be connected, it's because they're afraid of the disappointment of it hurting too much. Everybody who doesn't want to be connected. So every mitzvah, essentially, what is it? It's lashon tzafsa. It's a lashon of chibur. It's a connection. That's kavanas ha-mitzvah. What are you connecting with? So this is the antithesis of doing it in a robotic way. When I do something in a robotic way, there's no connection. It's just, I'm holding on to the external form, but I'm not connected to the consciousness of it. Conscious kavana, that's kavanas ha-mitzvah, is the conscious connection to what I'm doing and realizing that this is a form of connection. That's what it is. And that's the key. The key is that there's a relationship here. I'm connecting. There's a deliberate relationship. There's a consciousness. And that's why it's called safsa. But how the connection is, there's so many different vessels. There's so many different details. Hein b'teirav, hein b'mitzvahs. You can't compare the energy that's accessed through learning Mikra, which is Tanakh, to learning Mishnah, or Gemara, or then to learning Gemara, or Halachas, or Agadas, v'chein b'mitzvahs. That's why it says, was Kalim Achashvedish, a mashal for Hashem, has so many different types of vessels. The wine cruised and vibrated and flowed through all the vessels. But it's Kalim Shainim. Life is made up of so many different experiences. And that's why Torah and mitzvahs are made up of so many different experiences. Because every mitzvah is a different type. It's a different keli. It's a different keli. Different size, comes in a different shape, comes in a different time, comes in a different experience. The klal ha'koilu oire yizbarach hanikra yayin. But there's a klal that includes all the kelim, and that's the light of Hashem, which is called the wine. Just like with the limbs, there's one soul, but how is it channeled through the arm? Not how it's channeled through the nose, or through the eyes, or through the abdomen, or through the kidneys, through the liver, through the legs. Every Avid has its own unique chemistry. It's a different type of keli. Kelim and kelim shainim, but v'yein malchus is rov ki yad malchus, it's ein soif. And because it's the ein soif, it's manifested through a different keli, but the nekudah is always the ein soif. That's the tzad hashava. So this is the kavanah in a mitzvah. The kavanah in a mitzvah is that mitzvah shmoiru. In order to have this hiluch, this b'chukay setelech, which is essentially the axis of Ein Sof, a person needs to be able to create a structure in life to protect it. If not, either I fly away or it flies away, and there's a dissonance between the two. And that's sometimes the hardest thing. You know, people get in touch with something. It's very, very deep, right? But I got to go to work. I'm a functional person. I can't always remain in a transcendent place. That's what he says. Because of the Gashmi Saguf, you need shmirah, you need protection. As mitzvah is the whole system of Torah and mitzvahs of Tishmoira. And each one is a different keli for what it's shomer. But the nikud is, it's the yayin, the ein soif, that flows through it. So in simple words, what he's saying here is that every mitzvah and everything that I learned Torah is really another tool to access the infinity of my own soul, which comes be'evid anor yashva v'seichem, but in a way that can be accessed as I'm embodied in this world. Because I'm not living in a place of infinity, I'm living in a place of finiteness. So all Torah and mitzvahs is a way of accessing, having the kelim, which is tishmoida, which can hold on to this infinite energy of stimma d'chol stimma. And that's what's mitzvah lashon tzavsa v'chibur. It's a connection. And part of mitzvahs, there's two. There's shasal loisasa, which creates the protection, right? That no foreign element, which may be toxic, shall infiltrate. Just like we have in Evarim. You have what's called white blood cells and red blood cells. What's the difference? White blood cells, their main function is combative. They're at a war. They're preparing for war. You know how it works with the white blood cells. It's half of a fella. They're made in order to protect the body from invaders, from Hamasniks. Israel's white blood cells have been compromised severely. Everyone is trying to infiltrate your body, everybody. And not just because you're paranoid. Like somebody once told me, just because I'm paranoid, it doesn't mean the world is not out to get me. You may be paranoid, and the body has to protect itself. The white blood cells, they are here to fight infection. They're here to fight disease. They're here to fight unhealthy bacteria. Any foreign element, from a virus to a flu to chas v'shalom disease, infection that may invade the body and does invade the body, for whatever reason, the white blood cells come to fight. That's not the red blood cells. The red blood cells, they're here to carry oxygen and nutrients to every cell of the body, which allows us to live. That's what he's saying here. Avrim de Malka. And it's interesting, you can't compare, anybody who knows biology, the ratio between white blood cells and red blood cells, anybody knows? Huh? What did you learn in Harvard all these years? Anyway, the ratio is completely disproportionate, right? Because red blood cells much more. Because the reason is, Shasam mitzvahs loisas and number, they're more. But essentially it's passive, right? I'm not sitting every moment and not eating chazer. It's essentially a passive thing. The main avodah is not to fight evil in your life. The main avodah is to cultivate good. Yeah, you have to have protections. You have to have boundaries. But you're not sitting a whole day, building the wall of your house. You have to have a good wall. You have to protect yourself. The main avodah is to cultivate goodness. That's why the red blood cells are much greater than white blood cells. So this is the nekuda. So shasal loisasa protects the keli from foreign invaders, and that's what what's an aveda? An aveda really means I compromised my spiritual immune system. It's like when you have to be careful what you eat, right? And then you make a mistake. You're hungry, whatever it is, or you go to a kiddush or a bris and you eat the wrong thing, and oops, there was a foreign invader. I'm going to have to deal with this for a couple hours now. That's what it is. Every shasal loisasa, it came in, it brought something in, I have to now get rid of it. And then there is the keli itself, that's mamshech dein soif, that's the mitzvah, mitzvah tishmeira. And what does it carry? It captures the wine. The wine is malchus rav. Asher beikonis hayayin yetze hasoid. Why is it called wine? The answer is, the Gemara says, wine comes in, secrets come out. V'hayayin. So this is the side, which is this side, v'hayayin u'ay slavos. Slavos oide yizbarach. Hanishmar b'libo shel adam ha'yidei ha'torah v'ha'mitzvahs. The yayin represents the slavos, the passion, the fire of the light, which is protected, preserved in the heart of a person ha'yidei ha'torah v'ha'mitzvah. Yetze me'atzmei soid hu ava mesoteres such a tavi lebchinas giluli is b'chinas mahalech hanal hanisker le loshav lemekoyde hagavaya b'chinas seva v'mamale. Wine represents his slavos, passion, excitement, like physically what wine is and the color of wine or what wine does to people. So he says this oid, it's called yayin, because it's the fire of Hashem's light that comes into the heart of a person through Torah and mitzvah. And what comes out of that soid. What's the secret? The secret is the secret of who you are, the Ava Misoteres. The Ava Misoteres is the hidden love, the embedded love. He calls it a secret. I need the wine in order to be able to reveal that secret inside of me. And that's the secret that he says here, that the Ava Mesoteres will come out in a revealed way, and then the person becomes a Mahalach. What's a Mahalach? Returning to your true source, which is even higher than Soiviv and higher than Mamaleh. Like we learned yesterday, that Midas Harachamim is even on the highest worlds, because even Soiviv and Mamaleh is only the Hoidi al Eretz V'Shamayim. When the person has this Nichnas Yayin, to have the Tefillah, and you have the Kalim that capture the Oyer, the Yayin. So now what happens? The Soid comes out. Now your Teilechu can flourish. The love and that connection, that relationship that a person is really rooted in infinity, this now comes out, but it's an Ava Mesoteres. It's called a secret. Secret not because you're not allowed to tell anybody. It's a secret even to the person. It's the secret of the person. It's the deepest part that's embedded in the core of the person. That's our part of Be'ever Hanar, and now it can come out that the person could be restored and aligned back with their source. Because there's never contentment in a person if you're not who you really are, as we explained in the previous shiurim. I could look for everything in the world. Either it's bringing me closer to myself or further than myself. This is always the klal. We're either pursuing attachment to who we are, or we're running away from attachment. There's usually no neutrality. It says in Sfarim that the division between there's three things in Yiddishkeit. There's chiyuv, there's isur, and there's reshus, right? There's things that are a mitzvah you have to do. There's things that are forbidden, and then there's voluntary things. So the Rebbe used to say like this: that's till you have contact with it. The moment you have contact with it is either it's bringing you closer, either it's bringing you more attachment or not. The moment I come in contact with it, right? A piece of food. It's neutral. It's not a mitzvah. It's not a mitzvah to eat a tomato. It's not an issur to eat a tomato. It's reshus. A lot of money, anything in the world. You have things that are forbidden. Arla, treif, it's forbidden. Yeah. You have things, it's a mitzvah to eat. Matzah on Pesach is a mitzvah. Yeah. Regular potato, it's not a mitzvah, it's not an issur. It says till you come in contact with it. When you come in contact with it, now, it says in Tanya, it's klippas neig, either it goes up or it goes down. Either it creates attachment, if it's infused with the knowledge of who I am and what it's helping me do, or not. So that's what he's saying here. The person can only be content. Bal yidach memenu nidach. Bal yidach memenu nidach is ultimately everything goes back to itself. Everything is going to be real itself. So the authenticity of the soul is that it's from Oisis HaChakika. It's Be'ever Hanar. That's the secret. But I need the wine in order to be able to hold on, to maintain that fire and that alignment and that connection. If not, the B'chukaisei Teilechu is there, it's embedded, but it's not accessed. So essentially the whole Torah and mitzvahs is a lifestyle built around, designed around accessing the infinity of the soul in my daily life. Mitzvah meloshen savsa v'chibur. And he says, "V'tachlis yididus oisei yizbarach, hu b'chdei lahashiv nefesh v'nitzutz kol adam l'mayla b'b'chinas ratzei v'shoif." The purpose of this oil coming down, Hashem sending down this oil, it's a very big thing. Through Torah, through mitzvahs, this oil of infinity is in order to bring back every soul, every spark, to be able to reach what it really is. Both in a state of ratzi, which is yearning, and shuv is returning. That's what he continues in the Parshas. I will walk among you. I myself will be the one who moves inside of you. So in the continuation of the brachas, in B'chukaisei Teilechu, Mitzvot Tishmeru, he says, I will be the mahalach among you. We spoke that a neshama is a mahalach is an oimid. It says, V'salachti b'soichechem, I will be the mahalach among you. And here the word is v'salachti. It doesn't say v'halachti. It says v'his halachti. So it says it's explained in Chassidus, halachti means you move. His halachti means you go back and forth, back and forth. Es halech lifnei Hashem ba'artzes hachayim. It says in Hallel. Es halech, not elech. V'halachti means you go. You don't go back, you go. Right? B'lechtecha baderech, you go. V'his halachti is like somebody's walking back and forth in their home. You know, you're going one side, back, other side. Or you're taking a walk back and forth. You're thinking about something, you're going back and forth. That's mishalech. So that's what he says. Ratzei v'shoiv is not called v'halachti, it's called v'hisalachti. Because you go down, but you don't stay down because it's embodied, it's gvul. So there's a ratzei, there's a yearning to go back up. But then there's coming back down. That's what he says, v'hisalachti, that ani ba'atzmi, I myself, because you're going to have this oil through the Torah and mitzvahs, so who's going to be walking in you? It's going to be me. V'hisalachti b'soichecha. And v'ayidei zeh v'yisi lechem le'elekim, I'll be your God. And that's why after him he says the words as mitzvah tishmeru the hainu al yidei hamitzvahs tishmeru as hayayin hatoiv hanimshach lamata leleva adam lias yoitzi soit ava mesuteres lias bebchinas mahalach miyem liyem lamayla lamayla. So now we understand what it means. Through the mitzvahs you're going to tishmeru. You know, when you have good wine, it needs protection. If you don't have the right kalim, you don't have the right bottles, you don't have the right temperature, you don't have the right climate, you know what happens to wine? It becomes vinegar. So he says, as mitzvah tishmeru, you need to be able to protect this good wine, which is coming down. So what do you have for that? You have the mitzvahs. The mitzvahs are the kalim to protect this wine. Where is it coming down to? Into the heart of the person. What's going to come out of it? Secrets. Which secrets? Your own love, your ava mesuteres. Your own embedded love. And then you're a mahalach. You remain in a mahalach. Mahalach means there's always growth. And what's the growth? The growth is in love. The growth is in connection. The growth is in ava and yida, like you said earlier. Every day, lamayla mayla. Ubiladis, without this, nikra oimeid. The person is called an oimeid, not a mahalach. If the secret doesn't come out, the secret is your infinity, your bli gvul, your ein sof. Without this, the person is in danger of becoming an oimeid. I become like a statue. I am today who I was yesterday. I'm just in repetition mode. He's an oimid. And what happens then is, v'toy v'yasher be'einav. The person becomes smug, complacent. Complacent means you've reached your destination, right? My brother told me he stopped using GPS. Why? Because he was once going to the cemetery, Montefiore Cemetery, that's where the Rebbe's oil is, and he used GPS, and when he came to the cemetery, it said, you have reached your final destination. So he got very scared. So that's what Alter Rebbe is warning against. Don't reach your final destination. You haven't reached your final destination. You're on a journey. The openness to that journey, that's what he says. If not, oimid, v'toy v'yashru be'einav, I'm good in my eyes, I'm done. You know? I never heard anybody say, I made enough money, and that's it. I never heard a Jew say that. He thinks he's a malach, exactly. So for a malach, that could be good. For a neshama, there's a dissonance. It's not who you are. And he says, and you know what the biggest problem is? The person can't cry anymore. K'maimer hakosov, like it says in Tehillim, haloi chielech uvachay. Haloi chielech uvachay. Ki bebchines haliche yavi lebchines rachem im rabim. Lifkois bechadri libe arichuke meiri yizbarach. Real growth causes real tears. Real growth causes real tears. Because real growth opens me up to the pain. When there's no growth, I just become comfortable and stuck in my comfort zone. You see this, that's why a lot of people, they get stuck. I'll bring it down in a very practical way, even though he's saying it here much deeper, but it's true on, like everything, it's true on many different levels. Right? People often start working on themselves and they confront stuff. But what happens is, everything that was on the bottom and was, repressed or suppressed for so many years, it comes to the top. And there's a lot of pchi, there's a lot of pain, so people get frightened. It's like so I run away. But actually, that's the sign that you touch something. It's like you hit the spot. You hit that spot, and suddenly there's a current, there's a flash flood of tears. When there's halach yelech, then there's pchiyah. The great danger is I become an oimid, and there's no pchiyah anymore. And the reason there's no pchiyah anymore because I'm not challenging what is to go to a different space and to recognize the pain of remoteness. That's what he says. In pchinas halicha, yavel pchinas rachamim rabim. It's only in the real movement where the person reaches a deeper place of compassion. Lifkois bechadre liba al richuke meiri yizbarach. Crying in the depth of his heart on the remoteness from the infinite light. When I remain in contact with finiteness, I secure myself from tears. When I open myself to infinity, there's real growth. And there's also real tears. Because there is, I don't know that you could talk about this, I think you have to experience this. Because the moment there's that intimate recognition of who you really are, of what is reality, there's also recognition of the distance and the pain of the distance. And as he says here, the empathy for the fact that I remain in distance. That only happens when there's halach yelech. If there's no halach yelech, if I don't want telechu, there's also no tears. And that's the biggest danger. The biggest danger is when the person loses the capacity to stop crying. I created a wall, I created a shelter, nothing is going to fluster me, nobody's going to surprise me, nothing is going to shock me. I am who I am, boom. It's a form of control, but it's a form of detachment, it's a form of numbing, it's a form of death. It says when Rabbi Akiva would reach Shir Hashirim, it says in Zohar, Rabbi Akiva would reach Shir Hashirim, he would sob. Zol Go'ein of D'mayas. Why? For Rabbi Akiva knew Shir Hashirim. It wasn't... whenever you're in touch with deeper levels of self, the tears come naturally. It's not tears just of sadness or grief. It's tears of awe, of reverence, of gratitude. And it's also the pain of the distance. And knowing who you really are and who I became and what defense mechanisms I needed to create to maintain this distance. All of that, it just creates such deep emotions that in halich yelich there's always bachai. And dafke, the more halicha, the more there'll be rachamim rabim. Va'acha kach yavai. And like he said yesterday in the previous part, yesterday's shir, we learned that rachamim is nachal b'li mitzarim. You can't go too high that there's no rachamim anymore. Because even in the highest place, there's rachamim. Because it's only a ha'ara, it's not atzmos. On the contrary, the higher you go, the more there's rachamim. Because then you recognize even more the distance. And this is not a bad thing. This is what growth looks like. But at some point in life, it's hard, so we stop. Like, I cried enough. I did it. You hear what Alter Rebbe says here? That means you're ready to, don't die. There'll be more bachai. It says, literally he's talking about the stages of planting versus harvesting. When you're carrying the seeds, you're crying because, you're working and working and working. When you're carrying the sheaves after harvest, now you're dancing. Brings to it's not a contradiction. You would think, okay, so it's all about crying. He says, no. Every one of these tears will bring you to a much deeper place of celebration and joy and gratitude. Like he says in the Teichich of Parshas Kisavi, you didn't serve Hashem b'simcha v'tuv leivav meiroiv koil. Simcha v'tuv leivav from tremendous abundance. Because the very fact that there's tears represents, again, like we learned yesterday, what compassion is. It represents longing. It represents connection. There's no tears without love. There's no tears without attachment. There's no pain if there's no recognition of what you're really connected to, of who you really are. Right? So the halach yelech v'achai is essential to the growth. Real growth comes with real tears. And automatically that creates a bayave berina. The tears laments and grieves for the separation. Right. The tears come from the awe and the awesomeness of this type of recognition, but that itself creates the relationship. So the bayave berina is not a contradiction to the halach yelech v'achai. It's the result. That's what he says. Achak ach yavai. Vayidei zeh noisei meshech hazara. And through this, he will carry Meshech Hazara. What's Pshat? So it's all connected. He said yesterday, a pasuk from Yeshaya Navi about a shepherd. Yeshaya says, Yeshaya chapter 40, the Nachamu Ami, right? Like a shepherd who takes care, he shepherds his flock. He gathers the sheep with his arm, and he carries them. He lifts them up into his bosom, like it says by Moshe, right? He lifted the thirsty goat into his bosom. That's what a shepherd does. It's like you take this little cute, hungry, thirsty animal and you lift it up. Even the baby, Alois Yinal, Dafka the baby. So the Rebbe says, Noise, here we use the same word. Noise Meshech Hazara. The word Meshech is I don't know if there's another word like this in Tanakh. The Mefarshim struggle a lot with the word Meshech is. It's not a pasha to word it. What's noise meshech hazara? Something connected with meshech. But the noise, he's lifting up here the zera, the seed. He's lifting it up. This is the person coming back to your own Eved Anar, to the other side of the river. We all cross that river. But Avrama Ivri, an Ivri means you always have a path back to Eved Anar. Back to the other side of the river. What is that? Machshava ilah. Remember, machshava ilah, the highest level of machshava, hamiyuchad b'muhusay v'atzmusay yizbarech hanikra kadosh hamuvdal. The machshava ilah, which is one, it's connected, it's unified with the essence of Hashem, who's called kadosh hamuvdal. HaKadosh. Kadosh means sublime, transcendent. It's never defined by finiteness. It always remains kadosh hamuvdal. That's Eved Anar. Machshava ilah, remember, dibur is the way the divine energy is concretized in Oisius. Machshava tata is the maimer echad from the Asara Mamaris, which is the machshava that fuels the dibur. Machshava ilah is the way the machshava is still in direct contact with the source of consciousness, with the source of inspiration. And in the spiritual realm, we're talking here about the Ein Sof Atzmos. So, we come back to the theme of Rachem and Rabbim. It's the tears that allow you to lift up. Really, you're not lifting up the seed. You're actually degrading the seed. You're actually putting the seed into the earth. Seeds you don't lift up. The alumais you're going to lift up. I understand why it says Bayavi B'dina Noise alumais, because you carry them. The seed you're not supposed to carry, you're supposed to put it into the earth. So literally it means, you have to take the seeds to put it into the earth. But the word Noise by the Zera doesn't make sense really. That's what Alter Rebbe is saying. The halach yelech havacha, what it does is, it brings the seed back to its source. B'cheika yisa. The greatest, the pain of life is the detachment, the dissonance, the fragmentation that happened between Eved Hanar and how I get into my fixed mode, and this is how I live, and this is how I operate. And the greatest tragedy becomes, like Rabbi Aaron of Kalina once said, that the greatest tragedy is when the prince forgets that he's a prince. It's when my coping mechanisms become the status quo of my life. You make peace with your prison. I make peace with my fixedness. Like I said in the first shir, the curse in Hebrew, right? Kavali. is the idea of I'm a fixed person. This is who I am. You know, the lack of self-awareness. It's really tragic because it's so easy to fall into the trap. I'm going to quote my wife because she's smarter than me and holier than me. So she gives a Tanya class here. So I was listening to a few minutes of it. So she was telling the women, she was saying, you know, she say with the tremendous humility, but it's so true. She says, sometimes you look at a person, sometimes it's hard to see it in yourself, but sometimes you can see it in another person, right? And who they were 40 years ago is still who they are today. They're still getting angry about the same things. They're still getting triggered by the same things. They still did not have the courage to look in the mirror and say, is it possible that 99% of my day is basically a response? Comfortable. Basically, 90 much of my day, I fell into a mold, maybe at age 10, at age 20, and I will not go out of that mold. And anyone who threatens that mold, I will lose it. And it's almost like it's like, you know, you can't expect anything new. There's no surprises. And we look at ourselves, and I'm just a copy from yesterday. And that's what this Maimed is warning against, right? You come from the other side of the river, and the other side of the river, there's no fear of growth. There's no fear of change. Not only there's no fear, that's who you are. You're Ein Sof. I once read a beautiful word from Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. He said, it says like this, really a nice word. I think he quotes it from someone else. It's from an Italian Medrash, I have to look. But it says like this, it says, Ki b'tzelem Elokim asa Adam. Hashem made Adam in his image, right? The whole Parshas Bereshis, Parshas Noach. B'tzelem Elokim asa Adam. So I don't understand. Moshe Rabbeinu warns the Jewish people, Lo yisasa lecha, kol pesel v'chol tmuna, don't make any image of God. It's it's the worst prohibition, avodah zarah, to make a statue and a representation of God. How many times does Moshe warn against this type of avodah zarah in Chumash? It's a constant theme. Lo yisem, you didn't see a Bahar Sinai, you didn't see a picture, you didn't see a pesel. Suddenly tzelem means an image. What do you mean Adam is b'tzelem? God has no tzelem. Good question, no? So listen to an answer. This is the nekudah of this maimer. One of the nekudas. He said that's what he's saying. Ki b'tzelem Elokim asa es ha'adam. You're going to like this, Josh. Ki b'tzelem Elokim asa es ha'adam. Man was made in God's image. And God is imageless. So what does it mean that the human being was made in God's image? That the human being is also imageless. The human being doesn't have an image. The danger of Adam is when I have a tzelem. This is who I am. This is my image. What does it mean that you're reflecting God's image? You don't have an image. You choose your image. Now it's much easier said than done. I didn't choose my image. My image was maybe chosen for me. But as an adult, I can take responsibility and I could confront the image that has become me. I am this person. When my wife says this, I get angry. When my kid says this, I get angry. When this one says this, I get jealous. I get frustrated. This is my image, sorry. And I start believing in it. And then if I'm smart, I turn it into a philosophy. And then I bring you rayas from Rabbeinu Yoina and Reishis Chachma and Mesilas Yesharim, or maybe even Tanya, if I'm really good, right? And show you that this is it. Of course I'm supposed to be an angry person. It's not personal. You know, when people say it's not about the money, it's about the principle. It's not personal. I don't have any issues. And our whole life we could live like this, literally our whole life. And religion could become a toxic force that supports it all. I'm not blaming religion. I could be a secular person with all these dysfunctionalities too, don't worry. People think dysfunctionality is only in the Orthodox world. Dysfunctionality is everywhere, Baruch Hashem. It's not like everyone has triggers. Atheists also have triggers. They just don't call it God. They call it something else. They blame Trump. Whatever, you understand? You blame God, he blames Trump. Fine. But it's both triggers. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, don't turn God into an image. You know what happens when you turn God into an image? You turn yourself into an image. What do we care if you make a picture of Hashem? Who cares? Make a picture. If your kid, your 4-year-old, makes a picture of Tati and puts it on the refrigerator and gives it to you, it looks like you, like I look like you. Much less. What do? Yeah, gewaldig, gorgeous. You put it on your refrigerator, you frame it, you put it on the WhatsApp group, and it goes to the whole family. Between you and me, this picture, you know how much it represents you. But your 4-year-old made it. It's not about the picture, it's about the attachment. So what does God care if I make a picture of him? I make a picture, this is God, I put it on the refrigerator. What's the big deal? So 4-year-olds, you don't care that your kid misrepresented you on his picture, right? Because it's your child, big deal. He'll grow up, he'll find a better picture of you. So what does Hashem care if you make a picture? Let's say a picture. Because making a picture of him, turning him into a fixed image, turns yourself into a fixed image. You can't be Adam anymore. Adam, it says in Chassidus, is oisius ma'oid. An Adam is a person who at any moment can go into a place of ma'oid, b'chol ma'odecha. Ma'oid is the opposite of an image. So what does it mean? B'tselem elikim asa es ha'adam, that the Adam is flexible to become ma'oid. What's ma'oid? Ma'oid is not a noun. Ma'oid is wherever you are, very. B'chol ma'odecha means wherever you are, there's more. So I could look at myself. It's hard again to see it in me, but sometimes, and it's like 30 years. There's no surprises. This Maimer says it's the antithesis of what a soul is. We love it because it's control. Like we glorify predictability and consistency, and there's a good reason for it. Because predictable and consistent people you could rely on. You know, they go to the airport 4 hours before the flight in case there's traffic, and they pack already 3 days before the flight, and Shabbos is ready Tuesday night. There's no such a thing, you're shopping for Shabbos on Thursday, b'stam. You don't go to Wesley Kosher Thursday 4 o'clock in the afternoon with the dust. This is from a shagaya. We shop early, huh? That's true. That's true. As somebody once told me, I'm predictably unpredictable. So we like it, the control, the consistency, and we glorify it. It's called a Seder Hayom, and it's very good. Let's face it, schedule is very important. That's what he says here. You need Kalim. But the Kalim need to be holding on to Ein Sof. You understand? Don't start worshipping Kalim to worship Kalim. It's Kalim that are holding on to Ein Sof. It's in B'chukoisei Teileichu that you want to capture this mitzvah to Shmeiro. The moment I turn God into a fixed image, it means Adam is also a fixed image. So B'tselem Elikim also Adam is, I have an image. Of course I have an image. I have a nature and I have chemistry and I need to respect my nature. But what often happens is, a lot of that image is basically me protecting myself from who I really am, and I don't even know anything else. So that's what he's saying. The moment there's growth, there's going to be tears, because I'm unraveling stuff. I'm opening stuff up. Whenever you open up stuff, there's going to be tears. You're going to see the distance. You know, imagine when a person realizes this happens. This happens to real people. If a person realizes that for 45, 50 years, they were living completely from a place of emotional imprisonment. And they turned it into a shitta in life. They were suffering terribly, and they developed this whole crust around their thinking, and my whole life was that. To get out of that is going to create bachai. There'll be a lot of tears to cry. Tears of the pain. It's simply pain. Rachamim Rabim. And the more halach yelech, there's going to be more bachai. And if I get stuck there, I'm again stuck. Now I'm stuck in my relative enlightenment, but I'm still stuck. There's going to be more halach yelech weiter bachai. But in that sense, noisei meshech hazara. That's how you lift yourself up. And you reach be'evid hanar. And there's always a boy of it, but there's also going to be a joy, because it's going to be the joy of opening the locks, of opening the chains, of going out of the pit and seeing sunlight. Your toif is the inyan. And you come to Eivid Anar. What's Eivid Anar? Eivid Anar is no definition, where the machshava ilah is rooted in the endless flow of infinity. And that's joy. There's joy in that. And sometimes you peel off one layer, but now it's time to get to another layer. Sometimes people reach a place, and then suddenly they're thrown back into tears. Like, what happened? I thought I solved everything. No, now you're invited to the next. It's an invitation. The more tears just means you're being invited to the next place. That's what he says. So v'yavel l'bchinas Eved Anar, which is machshava ilah. Machshava ilah. Han meyuchel b'musi v'atzmusi zbarach hanikra kadosh muvdal kain soiv davar. Here's the end of the story. Hanashamayis yuchlulu v'yisachdu sham. Soiv davar is, the end of the story is that every soul, all the souls are going to be subsumed and united with that. K'maymer hakasav, as the pasuk says, kedoshim tiyu. What's pshat kedoshim tiyu? Soifchem li is kedoshim bevadai. Kedoshim tiyu is not just a commandment. It's a story. It's a reality. Kedoshim tiyu means you will be holy. In Hebrew, when you say kedoshim tiyu, right? You should be, but it also means you will be. In Hebrew grammar, tiyu means you will be. In other words, it's not just a mitzvah, it's a haftacha, it's a promise. How do you know? How do you know kedoshim tiyu? Maybe not kedoshim tiyu. Maybe you won't be holy. I could say you should be holy. How I know you will be holy? The answer is soifchem li is kedoshim bevadai. You're for sure going to be kedoshim because be'eved anar yashva v'sechem, because this is who you are. There's only a certain amount of time that I could be who I am not. So yeah, trauma, developmental trauma, wounds, pain, bad choices, coping mechanisms, experiences take me away from that, and I go into my mold and I make an image and I'm there. But ultimately life unravels everything. Right? They always say we're born 3 times. It says in Svarim that when you get married, it's the second time your neshama comes into the body. What's pshat? Our neshama comes down. There's things I got to work on. But usually I often don't work on it. So now when you get married, God gives you a second opportunity that you marry usually a person who triggers all your insecurities and everything you have to work on. That's the gift. So it's like your neshama coming down a second time. Here's your second ability to be able to fix it all, to be able to become who you're supposed to be. Very often we ignore the opportunity in marriage. So God does it one more time with your kids. The kids usually click, they trigger every button that they have to trigger to either freak you out or allow you to be reborn and become the real person you are. It's a process, and sometimes it's not in this Gilgal, it's in another Gilgal. But at some point, Kedoshim Ti, you're going to be holy. You know why? Because you are holy. Everything else is a distortion. It's chaloimus shecholmu achedim alachedim. So I could run and run and run and run and run and run, like by Yoina, right? You could run and run and run, and ultimately he falls into the water, they throw him into the sea, and he's swallowed by a whale, and he finds God in the womb of the whale, right? Mi beten sha'oil. You remember Mafta Yoina from Yom Kippur? From the womb of the whale, from the abyss, that's where he finds. Kairach finds God in Gehenna. Things get unraveled. The coping mechanisms get unraveled. The lucky ones, it happens earlier. If you're not lucky, you stay in Gehenna for another few Gilgulim until somebody, but it gets unraveled. That's why he says, Kedoshim Tiyu. You're not going to stay stuck. You're Be'evid Anar. You belong to Ein Sof. You are Ein Sof. That's who you are. And here he says like this. That's a sharfe word. Val yokil adam la'atzmai. A person shouldn't think to himself, yeah, I want to make things lighter. Yokil. Al yokil adam la'atzmai. Im zach v'im yasher paloi. If I look at my life, I seem pure and I seem straight. Liyos maspikas atzmai ba'avoidosar tama b'bchinas amidum b'madrega achas chas v'shalom. A person says to himself, I'm good. You guys are sick, as I said yesterday. You guys are sick, so you need all this. I'm good. I'm a good person. Yeah. People like me. So things are fine. Zach v'yosher paloi. And I'm satisfied by Vaidosei Tama. I have a complete avoida. But I'm going to stay in one level. That's who I am. Ich bin a gute Yid. Ich bin a shene Yid. Everybody knows that. I know it. You know it. And it's maybe true. He's not talking about a Meshuggah Shakna. Zach v'yosher paloi. His activities are Zach. Zach means pure. Yosher straight. Avoid Tama. He has avoid Tama. He never misses of a second minion. Was willst du? So the Alter Rebbe says, Ki loy sakum v'loy siya kazais. It's not going to happen. Loy sakum v'loy siya kazais. It's not going to happen. Why not? K'mayim ha'kosav k'doshim tiyu ki kadosh ani. You're going to be holy because I'm holy. V'atem am b'nei Yisrael mimakim kadosh yahalechu v'chutzvu. You have to know who you are. What does it mean? K'doshim tiyu because I'm holy. I'm holy. Why should you be holy? It's like somebody tells you, you should be a billionaire because I'm a billionaire. What's the shaykhus? You should go to the moon because I went to the moon. K'doshim tiyu ki kadosh ani. The answer is ki kadosh ani, and that's who you are. That's what he says. You come from this holiness. V'chutzvu, this is where you were honed from. You were chiseled. And therefore, everyone ultimately, intrinsically, this is who they are. This is where they're going to end up. You're going to come to a place of kaddish. And over there, there's infinite growth, more and more and more, higher and higher. So when a person says, I'm done, he says, you're robbing yourself from who you are. His chachos, newness, creativity. There's the process of life is a process of constant awareness, of constant rebirth, of constant newness. And the more I'm aware, the more tears. And the more real growth, the more real tears. And that brings to Bayava Birina, and that's the Noisei Mashach Hazara. So a person says, I'm done. I'm done. Says, because you don't know who you are. It's a form of blocking yourself off from your own soul. And that itself is very painful. That itself is a coping mechanism. You understand? That's what he's saying. This itself is denial of self. Why are you so scared of change? Why are you so scared of opening yourself up? The answer is because there's a wound over there. I'm protecting something. When I don't protect, you don't have to protect. Kedoshim tiyu. What does kedoshim mean? Kedoshim doesn't mean you're a holy person. The term holy. Kedoshim tiyu means you're ein soif. Ki kadosh ani. This is where you come from. This is where you're going to go back. That's what he says. Mukhrach. It's necessary. It's going to happen. Lo sakum v'lo siya kazais. He says lo sakum v'lo siya kazais. It's like. The Alter Rebbe is not saying he's really pure. He says he's pure. In other words, he created a life that seems pure enough that he could deceive himself. The fact that he's so sharp, he says, "Leisakum v'leisiya kazais," is obviously that there's something off here. It's the spiritual arrogance that I got it figured out. Oh, that's the most dangerous thing. Yeah. I unplugged the link. It's very humbling, this, because is there any point that I could just be in control? Can I just be in control? Like this is it, I'm good. The point is, no, you don't need to be in control. Being in control is fear. It's a form of fear. And it's where I protect myself. If I'm in control, I know exactly what's coming. I have control, everything is good. The constant of growth it's very humbling. It's always opening myself up. There's more and more. I want to stop crying. When I grew up, one of the things that touched me very much, the Rebbe would fabring a lot. So you talk about a person who's 85, 86, 87, 88, 89. Yeah. If I could use mundane English, quite accomplished. But he would start crying, and it was like a 4-year-old crying. It was. He didn't expect it. It was like, and in front of thousands of people. It's not so. You cry in front of a person, somebody in front of thousands of people just start crying. I remember one Simchas Torah, he was learning the last Rashi about why Moshe broke the luchas. And that's the end of the whole Torah, Le'enei Kol Yisrael. Why is that the end of the whole Torah, that he broke the luchas? It's the last thing. It was one of the most painful things. And he explained that Moshe broke the luchas, Rashi says, to protect the Jewish people. Like this, destroy the ksuva. Moshe's whole inyan was Torah, so he appreciated the luchas more than anybody else. What's the greatest praise of Moshe? That at that moment of truth, when he had to choose, he broke, as he says, he broke elikus, he broke godliness to save the Jewish people. The way the Rebbe was sobbing, it was like for half an hour, uncontrollable. You don't see people cry like that. Whenever you're in touch with your deepest energy, there's a lot of tears. Always. Because whenever there's holach yelech, there's going to be bachai. How do you know it's holach yelech? There's bachai. Because it's like you're opening things up, and it's like it's a whole new recognition, and then there's a whole new sense of pain and remorse and distance, and also gratitude and humility. But at some point, the person says, so the Alter Rebbe says, you don't need to be in control in life. You don't need it. Control is a mechanism that we create because we don't know who we are. When you understand you're me'evid hanar, you belong in infinity. That's where you belong. You came into a guf to bring infinity into the guf, not to get stuck in a prison. That's the liberation of a person. That's real emancipation. Everybody's tough as the Indian. Yeah? We're so scared. Look, you'll see there's such fear. And we know why there's fear. It makes sense. You have to have compassion for that too. You have to have compassion for that. We don't call it fear. We have much better words for it. It takes a lot, sometimes you meet yourself or you meet good people, fine people, but no self-awareness. No search for self-awareness. Because the search for self-awareness is always painful. I talk about the whole world. I'm an expert on everybody. I'm a chacham on everybody and everything. And I also may be a very good person. But completely disassociated from my inner flow. And to be disassociated from the inner flow is a form of spiritual death. And the Alter Rebbe says on this, Lo sakum v'lo siya kazos. It won't happen. Never disconnect from your inner flow, that inner flow. And the inner flow includes a lot. It includes a lot of pain, and it includes a lot of joy. And one is connected to the other. Because the pain opens me up to what is really, and what is really is a lot of joy. But what happens in the process is a lot of pain. And the more pain, the more joy, because I'm opening myself up to a source of infinity which is always blissful. So that's the inyan. The worst thing is to interrupt that flow in your life. That's the flow of that awareness, that flow, that connection. When my thoughts become severed, it's just, this is how I think, it's not how you think, it's not how you speak. Your thoughts are coming from somewhere. That flow. Let's go to the Ein Sof. Your thoughts are coming. So first I realize my thoughts may be coming from very, scary places or protective places. But that also means you open yourself up to everything that's inside of you. Okay, so now let's do the last lines here. Now it's taka 5 minutes. Bli neder. V'kol zeh, all this happens, ayidei ha-mitzvahs. There can't be b'chokaisei teilechu, we're out with mitzvahs and tishmeira. When a person disengages from Torah and mitzvahs, l'chayre, they're running away from structure. But what happens is, they don't have the kelim. Shehem ha-kelim shoymrei hayayin atoiv kanal b'chtei lo hitzi yasai. You need the protectors of the good wine, which will bring out the secrets. Here he summarizes. The good wine needs barrels, it needs containers. Those who make wine, if you forget where to put the wine, storage is as important as creation. right? That's where people get stuck, Storage. Oh, you forgot about storage. You have this beautiful company. You forgot about storage, You got to pay $1 million for storage. So as mitzvah said to Shmeiru is the kalim to protect the good wine in order for the secret to come out. For the soy, the ava mesuteris to come out, you need the kalim of the wine. And those kalim is ves mitzvah said to Shmeiru. And as we said before, every mitzvah is a different keli. Every inyan in Torah is a different keli. There's how Gemara is a keli, and Tosfos is a keli, and Rashi is a keli, and Shulchan Aruch is a keli, and Tanakh is a keli, and Mishnayos is a keli. Everything is a different keli. But it's always a keli for the wine, always. The next thing in the pasuk is, after this, it says, V'asisem oisam. And then V'asisem oisam. The hainu V'asisem atem. Vasisem atem. Vasisem oisam is vasisem atem, which means ein bezoyer b'chukosa. In the Sefer Torah, there's no nekudus, so you could read vasisem oisam, which is how we pronounce it. But the fact that there's no nekudus means you could pronounce it differently. You could say vasisem atem, not you should do them, but you should make them. You will make them. Vasisem atem, you atem is you in the plural. You will make them. What does this mean? So the Alter Rebbe teaches you make the mitzvah. You come to a deeper place. You actually make the mitzvah. What says you make the mitzvah? When the Jew reaches the source through tefillah, which is b'chukoyse teleicho, and accesses it in the kelim, which is ves mitzvah tishmeiru. So what happens is, Vasisem atem, you make the mitzvah, you create the flow from the infinite into the finite, which is what a mitzvah is. So Vasisem atem, it says in Zohar, Maila aleim akasav kilu asuuni. It's like you made me. You make the Adam Ha'elyon. You access the infinite into the finite. That's what the person does. When you become so aligned with your source, so the person becomes an embodiment of infinity. So that actually makes Vasisem atem, you create Adam Ha'elyon, you access the infinite into the finite. Or in the words I said before, the imagelessness permeates the image. That's what Adam Ha'elyon is. Adam Isis Ma'od. And then he continues, and this creates a flow of two levels. The pasuk continues, the earth will give its produce, and the trees of the field will give its fruits. So malmata lamaila is you create v'nosna aretz yevula, that which comes up from the earth. The nitzutzes from the earth that go up. And then veitza sadiyitim pirya is that which comes from the tree that already grew from the earth, the tall tree that represents hamshachem malmaila. From the malmaila it comes down lamata. V'tzivisi es birchasi b'shana hashishis hainu kavanas kol bracha baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu. V'tzivisi as birchasi is, he teaches in the 6th year. This is all. V'tzivisi birchasi b'shana hashishis says in Parshas Bahar, but it's about Shemitah, which is talking about here. Also, v'nas na'aretz yevula v'etz asadi yitimperia. So he says, and the pasuk says in Bahar, I will command my blessing on the 6th year. So he says, Hainu kavanas kol bracha baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu. So there's a remez here. V'tzivisi as birchasi is the bracha on the mitzvah. Usually v'tzivisi as birchasi means I will command my blessing. It says v'tzivisi as birchasi means every mitzvah, every tzivisi has a bracha. The bracha is the kavanah of the mitzvah, like we learned before, that there's a mitzvah and there's the kavanah of the mitzvah. So v'tzivisi as birchasi, my mitzvah will come with kavanah. It's the bracha that Chazal made for every mitzvah. Why did they make a bracha? Because they wanted there should be a meditation before you do a mitzvah. You shouldn't just put on tefillin or put on tzitzis or eat matzah or blow shofar. There should be a meditation. In order for the oil to flow through the keli, he says you have to have kavanas ha-mitzvah. What's the kavanas ha-mitzvah? The kavanas ha-mitzvah is the tzafsa v'chibur, the connection. It's not just a physical act, there's a connection. That's v'tzivisi as birchasi b'shana hashishis. The kavanah of the mitzvah, that's the bracha of the mitzvah. That's the kavanah of every bracha, baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu. The reason it's b'shana hashishis, he doesn't get in over here, but I think the Tzemach Tzedek and Iyar the Maimer that he explains this Maimer says that Shana Hashishis is Midas HaYesod. Right, the 6, you have the 7 midas. So you have Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, Netzach, Chayid, and Yisoid. Yisoid is number 6. Yisoid is connection. So he says that's where B'Shana Hashish is. Yisoid connects heaven and earth. So it connects the flow of the oil into the Kalim. That's the concept of Yisoid, just like Yisoid is the bris that connects male and female. Yisoid generally is Iskashas. That's the idea of B'Shana Hashish. That's the kavanah of every bracha, which is Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu. That Hashem comes into Elokeinu. Baruch Milashon Hamshacha. Yeah. And then here starts Biurim B'Chukaisei. The Alter Rebbe said another maimer to explain the first maimer. And here I mentioned last time, he explains the background of all the concepts, the way it's in Kabbalah. It's a very long beard, actually. This is a second maimer explaining the first maimer. The Alter Rebbe would sometimes say a beard on the first maimer.
It's interesting that the Alter Rebbe says that the Chalicha is in Bais Hafila, but we call it Amida, which is
Interesting. That's cute. That's an interesting shaila. Why it's called Tfilas Hamida? It should be called Tfilas Alicha. Well, literally, it's called Amida because you have to stand, not sit. It's a different inyan. Amida, you stand, you don't sit, and you stand in one place. Like a vav. You're saying it should be called halicha. It says tefillah is halicha. It's called tefillah hamid pasha because you have to stand. By Shmones you have to stand, not sit. That's the. It says v'ragleim regel yishara. Yeah, that the feet together. It's brought in Shulchan Aruch. Yeah.
There's some idea that you're supposed to be trying
Yeah. Yeah. Mahalchim. Kulam oimdim berumaylam.
We could do the beamer in 5 minutes.
The beat is the holy universe. Is achkika, the way it's in the svidas, the way it's in creation. It's a very heavy beat. Okay, so Be'ezer Hashem, today is Thursday. So Be'ezer Hashem, Monday morning we'll have a shir. We'll learn something on Shavuos. Monday morning, 7:45. Those who are here Shabbos, we have the regular shiurim on Shabbos. Be'ezer Hashem, I mentioned that Shavuos night is going to be learning as well. We're going to start 1 o'clock a.m. Tuesday night. Everybody is invited. 10 Gimel. There'll be 2 shiurim, and the second day of Shavuos as well. In the afternoon, 6:45.
Thursday afternoon.
Tuesday night and Thursday afternoon. Yeah.
I saw it.
Okay. Very good. Topic number 1 is the power of a mitzvah. Fascinating debate.
There will not be any ladies' cheer for the Tuesday morning.
No, it's Erev Shavuos.
No.
I told the ladies. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Also, as a preparation for Shavuos, if you have children or you know children, so Sunday, 6 o'clock p.m., I'm going to make a live stream with children. I'm going to have 6 o'clock p.m. on the yeshiva.net live, where children could just ask all their questions. And we're going to have a very nice program for children, Sunday at 6. Or the child in you can also join.
That's a very good word.
The first topic Shavuos is the power of a mitzvah. Fascinating debate between Rav Yitzchak Hutner and the Lubavitcher Rebbe on the topic. Very interesting debate that's not so known. And the second topic is the split in the Torah world regarding Israel. The debate, the split, between Rav Hutner and the Rebbe, if it does ein Shavuos. Okay, but they had a ganz interessante Vikuach in Halacha. A mitzvah, whatever.
How come by mitzvahs aseh we have the kavana, the shenichu, the bracha, but by los aseh we don't have that?
Because Loisa says just staying away from it. The best is that you don't have contact. A mitzvah's essay, you're engaged. It's also connection. The Gemara says, Yashav alayavir aveira, schar kilo asa mitzvah. When I disengage from an aveira, it's like doing a mitzvah. But the nature of the relationship is it's disconnect. Yeah, it's like a boundary.
And there you don't need a kavana?
Sometimes you need more kavana, but it's a different type of kavana. Because there you're not acting. There you're just disengaging, and it's possible that you don't even come in contact with it. Right now, I'm not eating chazer, right? Because I don't have it. If I'll be hungry and it'll be in front of me, so then it becomes an engagement. But usually we're not even, very often you're not engaged with it. So it's a different type of kavanah. If it's in front of you and you have to prevail and triumph over the Yitzhar that wants to eat it, then you need a special kavanah, you're right. But there's no bracha for mitzvahs loisasa because you can make a bracha 24/7. Right now, I'm not eating treif and I'm not speaking lashon hara. I mean, there's 365 mitzvahs. When do you do them? Always. So you can always make a bracha. So there's no bracha for mitzvahs loisasa. There's no action. The brachas are the action.
When it comes to you, then you say.
Then you, was, Micah, But vasisa Micah legagech is also mitzvah essay. It's not just a mitzvah slices. Okay, we also have a bracha on bir chametz. It's also a mitzvah essay and a mitzvah slices. Tashbisu and lo yira. No, I know, but there's also a mitzvah essay. Vasisa Micah legagecha. So the bracha is on the mitzvah essay. Everybody have a beautiful day and a lot of atzlocha. A day of growth. Halech yelech. Halech yelech uvacha inoyse masher chazara ba yave virina noyse alamaysav. There's a vart from the Baal Shem Tov. Interesting vart. It's very consistent with this. Sometimes it says like this: two people finish davening. One person is haloich yelech uvachai. There's a sense of awareness which brings tremendous amounts of tears, like we learned before. He says that means noisei meshech hazara. He's holding on to seeds, and seeds always can germinate and become tremendous trees. There's another person, he goes away from davening feeling complacent and smug and he's feeling just good and complete. He says, Noisi ala moisav. He's carrying empty chaff. Noisi ala moisav. The hest. One guy walks away, Noisi meshech hazar, he's holding on to seeds. Sense of perfection and smugness, you know that feeling. I have God too, you know. I just got God too. Nice it's chaff, and you'll see it an hour later. I'm adding that. Moshe said that. You'll see. It's from Baal Shem Tov, Kesser Shem Tov. Yeah, es ist nicht das bewusste Wort, aber steht von Baal Shem Tov.
To walk away from tefillah to feel good.
It's not feeling good. It's feeling smug. Not even gaiva. Smug. You know what smug means? Smug. Smug is.
False sense of accomplishment.
Yeah, it's like a full, like an empty sense of accomplishment. It's a complacency that it creates a wall. It's not a simcha. It's not a simcha of connection. It's like a smugness. It's another form of control. It says, Noisi alumoisav, you're carrying chaffs, you're carrying alumais. It's the shells of the grain, nothing there. It looks bigger. A zera is like a little tiny seed, there's nothing here, like we learned in the other Maim of Bahar. You'll see it 2 hours later, what this one has, what this one has. You know what's like the difference? You have a conversation with somebody, right? You're very vulnerable, you're very real, you're very authentic. And not everything is resolved, but everybody was very real. And then there's another conversation, you managed to manipulate, to exploit. The results were exactly the way you wanted. You know, you managed to score the points you needed and to have control, and you go away feeling very good. The first person has a seed, the second person has nothing. You know what I mean? You come out of the meeting, I got my way, I managed to squirrel my way, I put him into the position he needed to be, he doesn't know what hit him, everything is good, I look like a tzaddik too.
The first person was rich and the second person was poor.
Yeah, so it's just, it looks like you have everything, you have nothing. And the first person has a seed.
Getting back to what he was asking before, I heard you said it in one of the tapes. Not here, but I heard it in the tape. I don't remember what you said. If you would say L'Shem Yichud, you said it in the Rosh Hashanah, before Yom Kippur, you were saying something. You were saying if you say L'Shem Yichud for Avera, you wouldn't do the Avera.
Right.
I don't know, it was in a different context. I don't remember what he said, and that goes, like, why don't we say L'Shem Yichud?
Yeah.
Maybe you should say it, but then you wouldn't do the Avera.
Ein a chanami.
I don't remember what you were saying in some context with Yom Kippur. I also don't remember.
They say, I think from Reb Mendel Horodocke, Reb Mendel Vitebsker, the Pri Aretz, that he once said a limud schus an Yidden. He said, I never heard a Jew come to shul and brag, and he said, last night I did an Aveda, and I'm going to throw a Kiddush on Shabbos, l'kavod Aveda. He says, even if he did it, he's embarrassed, and he's guilty, and he did it by his secret. It's without a L'Shem Yichud. He's not throwing a Suda Seidah. Comes to shul last night, did I do an Aveda? He was saying, in other words, it's not done with a full heart. It's never done with a full simcha. If it was done with a full simcha, throw a kiddush, make a Suda Seidah, talk about it. So they say, I think, from the Mendel of Vitebsker. It's a brach in a malachim, yeah. Ja, was sagt er?
Meshach.
Yeah.
Not the only time.
Yeah. The Radak.
No, the Meshach.
Pirush Yakar Hazera v'chenu Meshach Chachma mepninim. Yikar HaChachma v'nikra davar HaYakar Meshach lishmoy nimshach l'meirachak. V'Hazera Yakar be'eretz HaNegev v'Ani Anoisi Yosef v'Hoylech el-Asad el-Zarei Hoylech u'boichem mipachdo Shema Yavad v'lo yitzmach upnei Yavshus Aretz v'kel Yisborach Roye Dima v'merachem alav v'mamtir al Aretz v'Beis HaKotzi Yove al Beis B'dina tachas Hashoye Hoylech u'boichem Beis Hazera v'yisa b'dina alumas k'tzirei al Beis Ken Yisrael b'galo sevim al-galo v'neis masa hamisim l'kayim ha'tereh v'amitzvos Shem Hazera b'mashal Beis Agula Shveis HaKotzi Yavoy al Eretz Yisrael B'dina v'yisa alumas ha'tev shetivim al-makel Yisborach v'yetzim an-galos b'kesav v'bezav. Wow. Beautiful Radak.
This is clear.
And the Ebenezer says Meshach is the Kli sheyesh be'hazara, the container, the Keli. And he says Meshach is the precious seed because it's Nimshach. Everyone talks about it. Shmoy Hoylech v'Nimshach l'meirachik. And the Mitzvot says Meshach is Miloshen Meshicha v'Haylacha. So you see that every Mefaydish has a different interpretation in Meshach. Why? Because it's not clear. So the Mitzvot David says Meshach, you're pulling the seed. The Even Ezra says Meshach is a keli, in which you're moishach the seed. Could be it's the same idea, you're moishach it. And the Radak says that it's precious and its reputation is nimshach. Meshach Hazara. Was sagt Rashi? Nigda de Barzara. I heard from Rabbi David Foreman, he said, Noise Meshach, Vayimshechu Vayalu es Yosef min Habor. They were Moishach. Noise Meshach Hazara is referring to Yosef. They lifted him up from the boir, they sold him, but he was a zera, he was planted. He was thrown into a pit twice and he was planted. And Noisei Alumoisav, he brought back all the sheaves from his dream. And he fed all the shvatim with grain. Powerful interpretation. Star Yidhar of David Foreman. Aleph Beta. Was macht er? Bruchim Abayim. Bruchim Abayim. Ihr seid von Österreich, von Wien. Von Wien, oh. Noch nicht.
Chaim hat dich auch eingeladen.
Ein paar Mal, aber es ist nicht ausgearbeitet.
Yeah, I remember we were talking about it. Very nice.
Ihr wohnt in Wien? Kommen auf einen Besuch?
Yeah, I came to my sister.
Und wie heißt er?
This is just my nickname, Catcher. It's the Catcher.
Catcher?
Yeah. This is just a name I was given by mother and some other.
Yitzchak HaMosok. Der Sisse Yitzchak.
Now you're going to remember if you have some.
Hamtakas HaGvuras. So da Hamtakas HaGvuras von Yitzchak. Yitzchak is Gvuras. I tell Mamtik the Gvuras. You sweeten the Gvuras.
Oh, my God. I remember now what you said.
Wie schreibt der Catcher? Kuf Aleph.
Allowed to drink in the middle of shear.
Einisch. Ah?
Allowed to drink in the middle of shear.
You're allowed to drink a middle of share.
Yes.
My share, you could drink as much as you want. What? Coffee? Water? What do you want to drink?
Soda.
You could drink soda, Gesundheit.
But you have to make a bracha before the shear. Can't make a middle of the shear bracha.
You can make a brach middle of share also. I don't mind. I drink a middle of the share, so why can't you drink a middle of the share?
Because I never drank in the middle of the shear.
You can always drink a middle of my share. You can even eat the middle of my share.
Yes.
I don't take it personally.
I also want to start giving shear.
You can even sleep in the middle of my share.
I also want to start giving shear like you.
Okay, Adarab.
But I still has to just see what type of
You'll
shear
come here, you'll get practice, and then you'll give.
I remember now what you said. You said,
Make your tefillin straight in between your eyes.
Tshuva mi'ahava and tshuva
Only
mi'yira.
if it comes from
Yidden
the
is
shear,
nasa
Put
like
that
a
together.
zachas.
You said, how can you have tshuva mi'ahava? You slate is clean. Tshuva mi'yira, okay, you're moichel. So you said, how can you be? I don't know how you put it together. Obviously, you're doing it much better than I do. But I'll just say it. Maybe you'll remember. So how can you do tshuva mi'ahava from an avera? It doesn't work. Made an avera. I mean, where's the love? There's no love. You put a couple of other things together, so it came out from. So bottom line is the machshava that you have, that you didn't want to do it, like the Rav just said now, the machshava beforehand, that's also why you don't say l'shem ruchot, is the ahava. Is the ahava part. That's you put it somehow together.
Is that you coming off a besuch to Mishpacha?
I actually came, I'm here already 2 months now.
Okay.
And since Pesach, I'm here with my mother, it's good for her. So she's not alone.
So I'm sure Tova Mitzlachas.
So I spent some more
Your mother
time.
also lives in Vienna?
Yeah, me and my mother. Then I have a sister here. And here, so I decided to come a little longer. Try and find Shizah because you have to, I find you have to be in a place. You can't, over the phone it just doesn't work.
Right.
Maybe you have to give a shit.
Ponim beponim.
Just work it out.
Ponim beponim. The Eberster will fit in a richtigen Weg, and he should throw all the blessings your way, and you should catch them.
Oh, and I should recognize them.
And be a catcher.
Oh, and recognize them. Recognizing the right person is also
Yeah.
Shkoyach,
In sports, being a catcher is a skill.
So catching the rye. In America, they learn catching the rye, so everybody was talking. I never read it. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I heard that too.
Okay, batzlacha.
China too, Shkoyach.
Psudas Toivus, Bruchim Abayim to America. He's from Vienna.
Did you saw the thing I sent you?
You sent? I didn't get. Let me.
Very short.
From what?
Talking about meditation, but mention
The meditation. I have to
yeah,
look.
but listen to a guy talking about